Alright, section 11, governor speed, engine speed control. Engine maintenance manual number 25C for mile 567, engine 3 of edition, General Motors locomotive electric locomotives. We're on governor speed, engine speed control. Alright, general description. The governor maintain with the speed with the engine with the setting with the determinant with the engine operator, go with the figure 11-1, U with the 567, the engine, U with the Woodward with the PG type with the having the electrical, electro-hydromatic, pneumatic, hydraulic speed control. Each governor is identified with a separate number, part number, and all electrical, all hydraulic governors is a pneumatic hydraulic speed control governor. Each governor may be set to maintain engine speed desired to 800 to 835 RPMs. Full speed to aided correct governor installation. Separate inserts are applied to each of the governor name. Plate identifies the speed setting with the governor with the proper fuel load, injector rack length with the figure 11-2, show with the cross section with electro hydro speed connector, control governor. Main parts of the governor are speed arrangement, speed spring, fly, weights, fuel, adjusting control power piston, compensation mechanism, compensating land, integral on the power piston, pilot valve, buffer of the piston springs, and an independent oil system, oil sump, oil pump, accumulators, connection, passages, engine, auxiliary devices as part of the governor, such as the load regulator, pilot, ORS solenoids with load regulator, pilot load overriding piston, LRS, OLS switch, engine low oil pressure and high loop oil pump suction, shutdown shown figure 11-2. It shows the rotary shaft electrical hydraulic governor. Shows the schematic of a rotary shaft PC hydraulic governor speed control. Alright, description. Electro-hydraulic speed control. The speed setting with the electro-hydraulic governor is accomplished by the steps of the energizing different combination four solenoids A, B, C, and D is shown in figure 11-2 with the schematic operating diagram of figure 11-3 with the speed A, B, and C. We have the plunger bearing with a triangular fulcrum plate varying distance with the set with the fulcrum point with a triangular plate with the fulcrum bears with the lever with the connected with the speed control pilot with the valve installed inside with the rotating bush and the D solenoid plunger bears with the rotating bush and through the cap bearing. To increase the engine speed, the speed spring must be compressed for the compression, with increase with the decrease of the speed spring positions, but it must be chained with satisfy these conditions accomplished by admitting of the release of the governor oil bulb of the speed spring piston. Emission release of the oil from the speed spring piston is controlled with the solenoids with the speed control pilot valve with the rotating bush. The solenoid different combination A, B, C solenoids over the de-energized are energized with a triangular plate forced down with the distance being depending on the solenoid energized with a constant causes speed control pilot will go down with a certain amount with the regulating portion with the regulating rotating bushing uncover the permitting of the governor oil with the under the pressure force of the speed spring piston down compressed with the speeder spring. As the speeder spring position with the move it down with linkage raised with the speed control pilot valve with engaged with the close with the regulating point with the desired piston position has been reached. Compression with the speeder spring forces the flies in allowed with the governor pilot valve plunger. This shows the schematic operating diagram electro-hydraulic governor. Right, the lower permanent oil rate for the power piston with increase of the fuel with the engine, unbalanced with the oil pressure with compensating length with the pilot valve plunger clove with the regulating port of the power piston with has raised with enough of the desired speed with the new speed and gauge with the flyways balanced position with against the speeder spring pressure. When solenoids a combination ABC solenoids are de-energized with the triangular plate will rise and speed control pilot valve will be moved upward with the sense of the pilot valve with the rate of the oil in above the spring piston to drain through the regulating point of the oil some of the spreading piston with the raised by the spring. If the piston moves with the connecting linkage cuff with the speed control pilot valve with the move and down close with the regulating point of the desired position is reached. Since the speeder spring of the piston it was raised, the speeder spring compression is lessened with the flyweight to move outward. Central figure force for the governor pilot valve the oil will reach and with the power piston will move upward to decrease the fuel supply engine speed. Engines energizing the solenoid with a combination of the oil combination with the other solenoids lessen the FS for the engine speed with the D solenoid pushes down with the rotating bush and lowers regulating point when only D solenoid is energized with the opens regulating port with the rotating bushing with the permit the oil above the speeder spring piston to be relieved the piston raised with the extension of the shutdown with the nuts and rod causing the governor to shut off the engine fuel supply. Note the oil enters in the speed control with the rotating bush and intermittent supply port with these ports are such size to allow the speeder spring position as you move full stroke in a specified time. Consequently, speed increases with the control of under all conditions of the operation. Pneumatic hydraulic and speed control. With the speed control of the pneumatic hydraulic governor consists of the transmitter with the receiver through the linkage rate with the lower speed control pilot valve, which is an identical operation of electro hydraulic governor. The transmitter, figure 11 and 4, is located with the control station actuated through the throttle lever of the shaft to give it the and consists of a spring-loaded diaphragm, tapered seat valve with the inlet air supply with the transmitter with the entered filter inlet with the orifice to give it the constant supply air supply with the orifice with the pressure for the raise of the air pressure for the dynamic diaphragm balance on the spring tension with the time of the canonical valve with the unsee with the air bleeds off with the maintain with the constant pressure should be continuous discharge of the air over the air transmitter with except for the increase of the speed varying with the diaphragm and the spring tension with the throttle with the cam of the wire varies air pressure for the transmitter air pressure pipe directly for the receiver located with the governor and the governor figure 11.4 exert for the pressure again for the receiver diaphragm if the air pressure is varied with the transmitter is also varied from the receiver. Show for the pneumatic hydraulic hydraulic speed converter. If you shut down speeder spring resistance, speed control, rotating bushing, connecting valve, connecting tube, receiver stop, walking beam, 3/8 inch slot screw, high speed screw, stop screws, shut down, fulcrum nuts, solid speed screws, and eccentric roller injection, increased speeds, orifice inlet, in transmitter filter, connection tube, clinical valve diaphragm. Alright, your diaphragm will respond with a varied pressure for the move of the speed control pilot valve with the linkage rate for the lower speed with the control of the pilot valve operating with the which is identical with the electro hydraulic governor. The governor controls the oil supply with the governor self-contained with the oil system as if the stored sump with a rotatory gear and accumulators, oil lubricators, moving the parts provide with further necessary for the operator of the various parts of the governor speed control column. The various speed with the engine with the depth for the idle chain with the maintain with the constant engine with the speed with the load chain with the amount with the fuel injected with the cylinders must be varied with the determine the position of the power piston figure 11.5 the move of the power piston with the tension with the speed spring vary with the throttle change with the engine speed change with the due to the load chain with the flyweights will move the chain with the position with the pilot valve with the plunger causing controls the supply of the oil power part of the power piston supply with the engine energy to move the injector control rack through the rotary governor rotary shaft injector linkage with the upward motion with the power piston resolve with the oil pressure with the control of the power piston with the pilot valve with the plunger rate with the position against the pressure and the power piston spring. The compensating mechanism that prevented the engine from the racing, hunting, and arresting with the movement of the power piston after it has traveled a sufficient amount with given the desired speed with the compensating mechanism with the integral composition receiving with the piston buffer piston springs and compensate with the needle valve with the pneumatic governor type governors. Fuel control. The figure 11.5 shows the illustrative of the operation fuel control portion of the governor, pneumatic governor with the power piston for the spring with the act of the shut off the fuel of the engine. The oil pressure is only you with increase the supply of the fuel of the engine. The governor drive shaft, the rotating bushing with the fly balls rotate together, accumulated with the provide with the governor pressure of oil stage towards capacity with the maximum pressure governor oil regulated by passive one then with the buffer position. Center spring with the hydraulic circuit between the pilot valve with the plunger and the power piston with the bypass by the needle valve with also bypassed by which are uncovered as moves a certain distance away from the central position. The small difference of the oil pressure on the two sides of the buffer piston is transmitted to the receiver the compensation piston of the piston pilot valve plunger. Loaded decreased and the throttle decreased. The shown figure schematic figure 11.5 of the engine is normally used to unstay the load with the constant speed with the eyeballs of the pilot valve with the plunger buffer piston are in normal position with the control land with the pilot valve with the plunger and regulating portholes of the rotating bushing power pistons and stationary. Shows the schematic of a pneumatic control governor. Alright, assuming these engine loaded to creep with the engine speed with the speed with the increase with the fly balls, move with the raging with the control lane with the pilot valve plunger, uncovering regulating ports of rotating bushing, uncover the regulating ports with the direction permanent of the oil to escape the air of the right of the buffer piston. They move with the direction permanent of the oil to escape the right of the buffer position, move with the right with the power piston, move it down, apparently with the sense of the compressor with the right hand buffer spring with the oil pressure with the left hand buffer pistons light and higher higher than on the right. This pressure control over the area above and below the receiver with compensating the piston with the pilot valve plunger. Since with the high pressure above the piston force downward and the land over the pilot valve with the plunger start with the close parts with the stop of the power piston movement. The governor is so designed that this action stops the movement of the power piston with a move far enough to correct the load change with the started action. While leaking through the needle valve of the buffer piston with the sound of the will gradually relieve the force of the top of receiving and compensating the piston with this with no longer need with the pilot valve plunger in central position because during the time of the engine speed between being returned to the normal outward force of the pilot valves have to reduce the balance and speed spring with an impairment with the compensation mechanism described above. These produce able to operating permitting the governor to rapidly respond to the speed change with the weight with the speed with the return to the normal. Alright, 2. Your load increase and throttle increase. All before all the parts of the governor are centered, there is no power position parts with the assuming the engine speed with the increase with the result of the decreased speed with the governor will go with the cycle of the operation just reverse over the described above with the valve with the decrease with the speed will cover the live balls to move inward, which lower with the pilot valve plunger output to the port oil from the accumulators pass through the pilot valve through the buffer positions of the left, then moves of the power piston upward to give it the engine fuel with the compression left hand buffering result of the higher pressure right hand side of the buffer plunger and on the underside of the right, receiving the compensation of the pressure move of the pilot valve of the plunger upward with the top of the movement of the power piston when move it far enough to correct the load change of the started the action. Oil leaking with the knee valve will gradually relieve the forces of the receiver the compensation piston allowing the buffer piston to return to sign of the force of no longer need to hold the pilot valve plunger in central position because of during the time of the engine speed with returning to normal. If the foregoing description of the speed change with the result of the load change if it has been consider the small similar governor moments often occurs with the difference between the actual governor speed with the governor speed set with the produce of the changing with the speeder spring tension with the speeding adjusting circular perpendicular with the type of the speed control due with the governor with large chain with the buffer piston travel is much greater than left to the right depending on the increase of the decrease of the speed with the patch flow oil to and from the power piston. 4. Engine shutdown adjusting given under maintenance. Our electro-hydraulic governor engine shutdown normally accomplished with the depressing of the stop button with the placing of the throttle in the stop position. The air filter action energized with the D-cylinder with the action and pressure with the speed control with the rotating the shaft, bushing with the support with the below with the land with the speed control pilot valve with the valve with the tapped oil with the governor speed spring piston with the drain with the spring under the piston force with the speeder string with the piston upward with the piston with extension with the contact with the done nuts for the shutdown lifting power piston pilot valve which action drained the oil under the governor power piston caused the power piston to turn rotary shaft and bring the injectors to no fuel position. Alright, figure 11.6 shows the shutdown solenoid pneumatic hydraulic governor. You got a ball valve, speed, spring, piston, oil spring, adjusting screw, solenoid, plunger rod, lock screw, lock nut, and plunger stop screw. Alright, your pneumatic hydraulic governor. On engines equipped with the pneumatic hydraulic governor shut down the engine accomplishes releasing the throttle to the stop position action complete for the circuit with the shutdown solenoid with the figure 11.6 for the engine shutdown solenoid move the plunger down with the open valve on the oil line with the speeder spring position 2 for the governor. Some of the oil is released above the speeder piston spring piston allow the piston to move up where the extension can contact the shutdown figure 11.4 with the bringing about with the engine shutdown also electro hydraulic governor. Year 5 your low oil pressure high oil pump suction shutdown electro-hydraulic pneumatic governors have the part of the governor of the oil failure alarm system which prevent low oil pressure high oil pump suction and shut the engines down. Operate low oil pressure engine alarms which do not start the engine until the trouble is corrected. If the engine does not dies on start after resetting the governor shutdown with section 8 with the possible loop oil troubles. As shown in figure 11.7 of the feature consists of the oil pump section diagram with adjusting of the screw and lube oil diaphragm plunger shutdown piston tube valve check for the shutdown alarm and alarm circuit switch. The area right of the suction diaphragm with the connected with the low oil pump suction oil pressure boiler supply with it admitted to the left of the lube oil diaphragm rest is eye of the lube oil diaphragm is oil under pressure for the governor with a speeder spring position governor oil. Following those mile pass with the outer circle with the speed control of the rotating bushing average revolution of the bushing operated with the shutdown with the piston vent with low oil pressure high pump section engine This oil will have been admins for the adjustable with the speed control rotating bushing port with the rotating with the port valve with the port sleeve with the grader with the release some of the maintenance of the oil regulating with the time interval until the sufficient oil is available to operate with the shutdown piston. This gives the time delay necessary to building up the oil pressure when starting the engine, adjusting the operator with approximately 40 seconds for the engine idle position, third throttle position higher than time delayed bypasses to open and nullify the delay period of the engine will shut down with the 2 second. The shutdown engine oil pressure fail of high tube oil pump suction exists. The safety feature defers hydraulic and pneumatic hydraulic governors only with the actuating showing the time delay bypass and setting the operating is identical to both governors. Alright, the overriding cylinder O, figure 11.2, with deployed with a hydraulic operating with the hydraulic governors if used if the position load regulator and minimum of the field position. Solenoids energized external circuit will be determined by the consisting of spring specific wire diagram covering the particular governor application when the overriding solenoids are released. Energized it move the small cylindrical valve downward for the permitting the governor actuate accumulated pressure to flow under the overriding cylinder position. Item 2 for the piston moves up the cylinder loading regulator pilot valve of the plunger when solenoid is de-energized in a spring. Move to the pilot valve of the normal position, adjusting the ORS override solenoid given the maintenance item 7. Alright, your LRS and OLS switches. The 12-point electrical receptacle used in 567 engine governors provided the 4-7 district with accompanied with the LRS for the OLSs with low oil switch of the governor solenoids. Both LRS and OLS switches contain with the background with electrical equipment because of the ORS is adjacent and the adjacent power piston of the tail rod figure 11-12. Both switches protect with the overload and be accumulated by the bar adjusted with the screw attached to the upper end with the power piston tail rod. The injector rapid length of the scale mentioned plus or minus 1/2 division less than the full load rack with the setting with the engine LRS is closed. Closing the LRS switch with the void supplemental with the circular injection with load regulator permitting the fuel regulator with the control of the injector rack with the 67 thousandths of an inch 67 hundredths of the inch OIS switches, which if the energize the ORS solenoid causing the load regulator move toward the minimum field with the reduce the load on the engine setting with the switches given under the maintenance item 6. Alright, maintenance, setting the governor engine speed of the 567, the engine governor with electro-hydraulic, pneumatic, hydraulic are set for the 205 RPM idle engine speed with either 800 RPMs, 835 RPMs full range. Speed, depending on the application, corresponding speed with the throttle position shown for the table A with the engine governor speed setting with the size for the conversions of the engine 300 RPM throttle step speed varying through the those shown speed settings of these engines outlined under 1B. A system of navigation is used with the governor since they use the settings vary with the type of the governor part numbers located with the nameplate with the parts number to identify with the type of load control pilot valve bushing governor as well with the speed control with the governor's electro-hydraulic pneumatic hydraulic have 5-port wide slot pilot valve bushings whereas governor's electro-hydraulic have the conventional 5-port and normal slot bushings which govern them with a different load regulator timing. Under table B, in addition with the governor with the insert with the figure 11.8 and the pilot with the nameplate marked down the insert with the full speed of the governor is set to maintain the full load injector rack length of the engine with which the governor is used. This is one of the inserts each of the fuel loading rack and setting of the full engine speed with the money be used. The governor is applied to another engine installation reset of the different type of the fuel speed. One that has table A, the engine governor speed settings. Alright, and then it goes over some which one page would this be? Alright, D represents the engine horsepower, main generator 567 electro-hydraulic governor ordered separately with 835 RPM and 96 hundredths of an inch with an injector rack with a pneumatic hydraulic governor set at 800 RPMs, 83 hundredths of an inch injector rack setting with a purchase order with a specific request of a different setting. NS responds to the pilot valve with a bushing 5-port which permits load regulating time in the 23 to 33 seconds with minimum field position, maximum field position 6 to 10 seconds. Maximum minimum field position. WS represented with the pilot valve plunger bushing in the wide slot, which permits the load regulator 6 to 10 seconds. Minimum field position. Maximum field position 23 to 33 seconds. From maximum to minimum, approximately 6 seconds. From maximum minimum field position. ORS solenoid energized. HQO stands for high output injector. ST represents standard injector. Different fuel load injector rack lengths should that having the correct information should that applied with the governor application with the governor respective the used and shown in table B. Electro-hydraulic governor due to the influence and the difference in expansion between the metal with the governor no attempt should be made with the accurately engine speed with the temperature of the metal as the equalize with the tachometer either applied with the governor drive of the front camshaft special solenoid adjustment. Wrench is available to facilitate speed setting of the tool is for the holding of the solenoid cable, the making and locking of the top of the screw adjustments. Portable engine speed control with a plug adapter can be used to set the engine speed of the controller located with the closed governor and current supply of the taken with a low voltage receptacle adapter. It may be used for the 567 engine governor with a 12-point plug, wherever the control has 8-point plug when a 567 engine is replaced with the 567B engine permanent governor adapter. Alright, use G for the connecting with the governor with the locomotive governor plug with the speed given in the following items 2 through 6 with the governor full speed with 835 to 843 RPM with the same procedure set for the governor at 800 to 808 full speed engines except for the speed through 650 to 658, 800 to 808, 7 to 125 to 7. 133, 500 to 508, 275 to 283 RPM through throttle position 6, 8, 7, 4, and 1 respectively. Speed setting for 300 idle speed engines are given in B with a special engine setting. Be sure to necessary precaution for taking the generator until the being worked with not supply power with the portable control with the portable control above the control connected directly with to the governor. However, if the throttle is used with a multiple engine, consider the isolation switch for the other point units of the must be played for the start position while the unit is worked on in the run position. And then it goes up to say the set the throttle position and the bring engine speed to the adjusting 675 to 683 RPMs, adjusting the fulcrum nut figure 11 to 9. Item 2 with the end of the linkage, raising the fulcrum nut, increase the speed, set the throttle to the number 8 position, bring the engine speed to 835 to 843 RPM, adjusting the D solenoid stop screw. Item 1, back off the stop screw, increase the speed while throttle in the number 7 position, just the A stop solenoid stop screw for 755 to 763 RPM for the top screw with the increase the speed. Alright, set the throttle position forward to bring the engine speed to 515 to 523 RPM, adjusting being a solenoid stop screw, turning the increase of the engine speed. While the throttle is in idle, adjust the C solenoid, given the 275 283 RPM, the engine speed, turn the screw, the engine speed. Check with the above setting with if incorrect. If correct, all the other speed will be limited to, will be within the limits of the solenoid set of the engine speed, throttle position, speed, intermediate throttle positions must be within limited shown of the speed chart. 8. Also, the speed pointer should be observed with the register correct speed with the speed with the scale with the setting with the speed engine speed with the full speed with the scale with the relocated and remarked pointer scale corresponding to idle and full speed. H speed scale is altered with the check pilot valve setting. Special engine speed setting. The sum of the 567C engines are repowered locomotives. The original electric motor division manufacturer overset to the return at 300 RPMs idle speed with the engine. Also, these engines operate with a different speed with the corresponding with the throttle position compared with these engine for the identification of the wire diagram locomotive listed with the speed set, specific speeds. So the speed of the engine, general procedure with the valve with the outline under the items 1 through 8 with the speed with each of the throttles adjusting positions with the 660 RPMs, 8 the number 8 to 835 RPMs, number 7 to 775 RPMs, number 4 to 525 RPMs, and number 1 idle speed with 300 RPM. The setting should be following the speed of the revolutions per minute with the corresponding throttle position 1, 2, 1, 300, 2, 360, 3, 460, 4, 525, 606, 667, 750, 775, 8, 835. Or your pneumatic hydraulic governor. On engines equipped with the pneumatic hydraulic governor, the engine adjusts for the engine, the idle speed and full speed as follows. Reach the throttle stop position, idle position, connect the air pressure gauge with the airline with the transmitter with the control of the receiver with the governor gauge. Maybe physically connected between the airline with the governor and at the control stand. While the throttle with the end idle with the adjusting eccentric transmitter, figure 11 and 4, give the 14 psi of the air gauge. With the throttle in the full speed position, check with the air pressure within the gauge. Air pressure should be greater than 28 psi of the governor. Serve the engine controls to be with delay shaft lever to no air pressure. If necessary, set engine to 205 to 283 RPM with adjusting fulcrum nut. Item 6, figure 11 to 10. Be sure the shutdown solenoid is not bottom. See adjusting solenoid for shutdown. The end of the walking beam should rest over the top of the receiver at 11 of the walking beam directly under the control cable plug with the walking beam at the 1 3/16 of an inch by 2 inch rectangular plate with the receiver of the 2 10 32 Allen screws on 1 3/8 of an inch slot head screw lock nut. Alright, establish the 15 psi air gauge open throttle with loosened 3/8 of an inch lock nut on top of the walking beam with adjusted the 3/8 of an inch 24 screws at the given them with a 1,000 to 2,000 inch clearance between the bottom of the walking beam and the top of the receiver with the tighten lock nut. 7. The back off at the high speed with the top screw with the walking beam with the down limited travel over the beam with the open throttle. Establish the air pressure for the air gauge with the required with the full speed with the engine fouls. The beam at the lowest loosen the screw with the loosen the screw at 3/8 of an inch screw with the lock nut, no moving slide, block in, increase speed, moving block out, decrease speed, no. Each time the sliding block is moved, the return of the item 6 and then readjust the 3/8 of an inch screw. With the throttle at full position, full open position, adjust the high speed stop screw with the walking with a beam to obtain the correct full engine speed according to the governor engine. Adjust the speed or spring piston stop. The speed or spring piston stop of the head screws shown figure 11, item 4, figure 11 to 9. Location stop of the same with the pneumatic hydraulic governor set file with the while the engine 205 to 283 runs the set screw with the contact with the top of the speed or spring piston with the back off of the screw 1/2 turn and lock to prevent the piston of the hitting of the top of the cylinder. Alright, adjusting shutting the nuts, electro-hydraulic, pneumatic, hydraulic governor. Figure 11.9, show for the item 3 with the shutdown with the nuts with the electro-hydraulic governor. Figure 11.10, item 8, pneumatic hydraulic governor with the shutdown with the nuts with the pneumatic governor. Should be adjusted with the idle engine speed with a sort of 132 inch slack clearance between the bottom of the lower shutdown nut and top of speed setting of the piston extension when the rod release of the clearance will not be apparent since the shutdown will drop down. A special wrench is available to facilitate the adjustment. The tool has a 132 inch gauge wrench, pneumatic governors, and 332 for the gauge portion of the SI mile governors. Or adjusting solenoids to shutdown. Electro-hydraulic governor. The D-shutdown solenoids adjust for the time of the engine speed of the adjustment of the pneumatic hydraulic governor. Shutdown solenoid pneumatic hydraulic governor used in 567 of the engine. Shutdown 11 figure 11.6. Solenoid push control with a particular partial tap of the application tube with a 1/8 of an inch. Allen head screw with the lower one serve with the adjusting screw with the upper with the screw with the serve with the lock with the hold the adjusting screws in place. Or adjusting may be made with the engine dead with the solenoid de-energizes valve with the remove of the solenoid plunger stop screw, large nut making solenoid plunger accessible. Insert the small width of a rule in the solenoid cave that is rest over the top of the solenoid plunger. Observe the dimension of the top of the plunger top cave using the rule. Push solenoid plunger down as far as it will go. Observe the reading on the top of the cave of the plunger. Travel should be within 60 hundredths of an inch, approximately 1/16 of an inch. Plunger travel 16 hundredths of an inch. Back off the adjusting screw. At the 16 hundredths of an inch, running an adjusting screw with the plunger may be removed with a 1/4 inch of the 28 bolt. Add as a filter. Remove the plunger with adjusting of the beam made with the remove of the lock screw to make the necessary adjustment. Lower screw 60 hundredths of the plunger inch of the plunger travel is obtained with the replace the upper lock screw with the plunger with the replace with the plunger solenoid stop screw run down until the plunger bottoms of the back off the 2.5 turns with lock with the lock nut observed shutdown. And this shows the set screw timing delay bypass fulcrum high speed screw slotted walking beam detail. Show the stop lock nut 3/8 inch hood nut sliding block on the walk beam. Alright, value during the governor, there's no leakage of the valve, adjusting the compensation when the engine start with the time and after the installation, new recondition governor. It's important to adjust for the compensation with the compensation needle valve located with the power system figured 11-1. 6 term with also vent plug with the rear of the governor identified with the triangular plane should be loosened, not removed. Then engine allow with the surge hand operated lay shift lever for 30 seconds to with the work air out of the governor. The all engine should be surged sufficiently to remove the air from the system with the tighten with the vent plug with the cover that's compensated with the needle valve gradually until the surging with the eliminated power setting. Depends on the characteristic of the engine. Keep the needle valve as far as open as possible to prevent sluggishness. After compensation has been adjusted correctly, the engine should not be necessarily changed to the extent of the permanent temperature changing effective viscosity of the governor with the needle valve setting varying from 1/8 to 2 turns open, adjusting OL and LRS. The governor is equipped with the OIS switch and LRS switch, which is mounted with the adjacent power piston tailed under tail rod under the governor with the figure 11-12. The OLS switch. It acts to prevent the engine overload, completing the circuit of the ORS. The LRS served cut out with so far fast starving, retaining the full load control of the load regulator. These switch sets are as follows. Are the LRS switches as set to close one terminal shaft scale division plus or minus with 1/2 division, one and plus or minus 1/2 division, lower than full load injector rack length of the particular engine with the governor issue with the exam full load injector rack length of the engine 96. One LRS should be set to the 92 hundredths of the plus or minus 1/2 division and full load rack length of the 83.1 LRS should be set to 79 hundredths of an inch plus or minus 1/2 division. To set the IRS switch to the raise the power of the piston tail rod of the governor tail rod and unit with the correction setting the dimension governor quadrant scale with the opposite with the scalar point with the governor adjusting the kernel bolt with the extension bar to contact with the switch actuating arm of the RLS switch. Or to adjust the OLS switch with the raise of the power piston tail rod, the U of the governor jack of the pointer with the governor opposite with the 67 hundredths of an inch of the mark with the terminal shaft scale with the loosening lock nut Allen screw with the OLS forever figure 11-12 with adjusting the Allen screw to cause the overriding solenoid to be energized. The OLS overriding lever switch is behind the LRS lever. Overriding solenoid adjustment. Overriding solenoid is the engine drive that opens the valve, permitting the governor to overflow with the load control pilot valve. The overriding the piston with the piston load with the control pilot valve. The plunger with the reduce the main generator excitation. Overriding the solenoid de-energizing the oil flow stop and the spring return to the load control point. While in normal operation condition, overriding which solenoid is to be adjusted as valve loosen the lock nut 0 solenoid to run the screw down until the load control pilot valve raises. Carefully back off the screw until the pilot valve starts down, then back off the screw in the full quarter turn or more. Lock it. Improper adjusting override speed may result in the loss of the governor accumulator oil pressure caused by the overriding solenoid adjusting screw by being backed off too far after allowing the valve to open supply port, permitting the governor oil pressure to be bypassed directly by the governor oil sump. And in this case, when the engine dies lower throttle position, adjusting the overriding solenoid should be checked with among the other checks operating the pilot valve with the covered in section 12 of the manual. Rushing governor is not recommended to flush over the governor. Regular maintenance item instead of the governor should be disassembled, clean, and if operating improper due to the other form retire particle of the governor. Although in case of necessity of the governor is suspected of being dirty, it would be not practical to remove the governor from the engine and then be flush with the engine's valve. The engine shut down with the drain plug from the governor case with the petcock open. Check valve replacement. Spring 2 pits of the filtered kerosene governor with the start the engine by low using the lay shaft manual control lever to vary the speed of the engine 400 to 500 RPMs for about 5 minutes. If they shut down the engine, drain the kerosene from the governor. Repeat the operation several times until the kerosene drain with the governor player is clean. With 2 pints of the recommended oil with the governor is given in item 9. Following the repeat with above the proceed with the stand drain with the remove the kerosene tap with the governor fill with the governor recovered with the recommended with the oil proper level and start with the engine. Vary the speeds from the several minutes for the work of the air out of the system. The oil level to be checked with the oil aid if necessary. Governor oil supply with the oil capacity for the governor 3 pints with the new oil type of the U of the engine SA number 20 with the turbine type of the oil having the rust and oxidation protection. Oil levels should be maintained between the marks of the sight glass. The vent at the top of the sight glass must be marked. Must be on a sure correct reading with the recommended with the governor oil will be checked twice a year with the using the care of the oil and the containers are clean. Alright, governor storage in the event of the governor can be stored for the considerable length of the time. It should be protected against rust of the governor SA number 20 with the turbine type of the oil having the rust oxidation protection and required with the further protection. However, the other oils lacking with the other property of the air drain with the governor flush with the kerosene drain. The governor should be filled with oil providing the protection with rust, and after filling the oil with the governor, then should be run several minutes if possible when the governor against the service recommended with the governor oil should be 1. Adjusting the oil pressure with a high oil pump shutdown. Low oil pressure shutdown with electro-hydromatic pneumatic hydraulic governor. Low oil pressure time delay shutdown delay period will engine is at the idle beam be checked by shutting off the oil supply to lube oil diaphragm by pressing in the number 10 Allen stop screw, figure 11.7 of the high pump of the section diaphragm. Regulate the time delay period with adjusting the time delay pointer 11.7. Figure 11.7 explained previously with the delay with the regulate with the 40 plus minute minus 10 seconds by the rotation of the manual time delay pointer. Figure 11.9 item 7 located with the A and C cylinder and electro-hydraulic shutdown cylinder and pneumatic hydraulic governor. The rotation of the pointer of the counterclockwise increase the time delay period with the valve set very slightly with the change pointer position effective the time delay with the bypass adjustment electro-hydraulic governor. The time delay adjusting electro-hydraulic governor is made with regulating clearance between 3/32 of an inch Allen screw set screw located centrally between A, C, and D cylinder screw with a triangular Falcon plate with a time delay plate bypass extension. The figure 11.7 the clearance of the idle with 10 hundredths of an inch to 15 hundredths of an inch, 15 thousandths of an inch may be set back off of the several screw turns, placing the throttle in the number 3 position, engine running screw down and carefully until the pressing of the number 10 Allen stop screw over the high suction diaphragm will give it a shut down in about 2 seconds, then turn the quarter-inch screw further down the lock. Time delay with adjusting the pneumatic hydraulic governor of the time delay with the bypass. They check with the hydraulic governor with the same as the electro-hydraulic governor, bypassing the number 10 Allen screw with a high suction diaphragm. The adjusting that is made with the throttle idle put in the 132 with the shim between the idle stop control plug and the end of the receiver of the blade walk beam of the receiver set by the bypass screw bypass valve screw with the figure 11.10 item 5, which is next to the high speed stop screw and bears the spring load with the bypass extension with the adjust push of the valve with the off the C with the check C with the pressing of the number 10 Allen set screw high suction diaphragm engine operating at the third throttle position shut down with the tripping time with the engines operating with the third throttle position higher should be greater than 2 seconds. The higher suction shut down electro-hydraulic pneumatic hydraulic governor hydraulic shutdown should operate with a 16-20 inch vacuum and indicating the initiate with the shutdown feature of the adjusting that is made with the number 10 Allen stop screw figure 11.7 then screwing with the screw with the decrease of the suction tripping the pressure with the setting and adjusting made with the disconnection suction line connection with the governor attaching the device with the capable of creating the vacuum diaphragm chamber 16 to 20 inch vacuum with adjusting the set screw to operate under this section. Vacuum should be increased slowly with a rapid increase with the given an inaccurate setting of the unsuitable instrument with the purpose of being made with the information manual with instruction 5503. Give the details construction ordinary available parts. Operation with the suction alarm may be checked manually by pressing the number 10 set. Screw the engine shut down with the 2 second with the screw is held with the further as far as it will go when the wind job is running the third position or higher. In the event that the suction diaphragm is broken and a small amount of the air will be drawn with the lube oil system. The diaphragm may be checked with under external oil pressure not greater than 10 psi with the check for leaks. Alright, 12. Your governor drive assembly. The governor drive assembly figured 1113A with mount with the front of the engine accessory driven and covered with adjacent water pumps. Governor is mounted with the housing driven with a 90-degree bevel gear drive with the serrated with the end of the driver shaft with the main with the driver plate with the governor drive with accessory gear train. Lubricating with the gear driver given governor driving bearings gears is provided with a drill patch and housing covered base provided with a housing cover the removable plug with a tachometer adapter can be inserted with the drive shaft at the end of the apparent and is inserted with a reamed hole at the end of the governor drive shaft that has a friction fit and a permanent electro tachometer. Given the drive application may be deployed with the governor drive of the shaft with the figure 11 and 13C with the permanent tachometer drive that is inserted with the whole end of the drive shaft point end in the shaft. The one piece of the governor drive shaft and used in early 567 engines could be modified in figure 11 13D to fit the 567C engine governor driver. Alright, the governor driver assembly normally does not recover the trouble or expecting the time of the good general engine overhaul reconditioning as a time when the condition is warm with the governor driver assembly should be removed with this probe with the inspection check with the after removal of the governor driver assembly can be easily removed. Mounting with the dial correctly position governor drive housing with accessory drive gear drive cover. Alright, after the governor driver has assembled it has been removed, the disassembled visually inspect with the bushing boards and a thorough face with the flaking embedded dirt, the chipping screwing with the chip flak and bushing with large quantity of the embedded dirt should be replaced with the new bushing check with the oil passages housing to be sure with the fear of the restriction inspect with the bevel of the gear with the Nixon pit visible wherever the loaded tooth faces of the Nixon burn type spot for the stone is out with the gear replaced with necessary with the replace with the gear with the recommend with the both of the gears be replaced and set with the check for the individual part of the assembled with the inlet limits to the specification. End of the section. And end of this section. D. Governor trouble if the engine point fails to start. Check for the overspeed. Triple the check for the fuel supply. Return the sight glass. Check for the governor speed indicator pointer to comes into the idle position while the engine crank with the running of the idle speed with the manual leg shaft control. Check the shutdown plungers must be in no red shown. If starting engine hold the 1.7 hundredths of an 9 hundredths of an inch marker terminal shaft scale with the opposite of the point with the governor engine low oil pressure for the gauge for the minimum of 3 to 5 pounds per square inch. These relief of the high engine will not continue the run above the items are okay. The power piston probably is not going out to the internal governor defect. If the engine stop under low, check the shutdown plunger for the kick over the top of the engine for the low oil pressure high with the suction, checking the overspeed with the trip lever, check the fuel supply, return the restart with the check of low oil pressure minimum 3 to 5 psi with the idle 14 to 16 psi at 800 RPMs, 14 to 7 psi, 835 psi below the shutdown plunger will pop out with if the pressure is satisfactory. Plunger pops out with the check with the suction head on the oil pumps, and this must be less than 16-inch vacuum, greater than 16-inch vacuum clean with the suction of the shutdown plunger should not be below the 16-inch mercury vacuum in proper speed setting. Check idle and fuel speed with the setting of the transmitter of the receivers and speed setting solenoids. Engine loading properly. Check with the pilot valve load locking and adjusting set. See if the engine is operative and has fuel and air. Check the vane of the motor to see if it moves to the minimum field position. No check for the operation overriding solenoid with the hydraulic valve is operating with a minimum move of the pilot valve open down. Check with the overriding solenoid plunger to see if it moves downward to energize the engine running with consistently over unloaded. Check engine and speed indicating the speed with the inside of the governor and pilot valve to see with the bracket of the length of the pointer with the accuracy of the running of the load condition of the speed and pilot valve with the scale of the location of the full load operation reset pin and play with the reset pilot valve linkage, no fuel position, and then you shut down governor pointers. Should point at opposite 1.96 position of the terminal shaft scale of the rotary shaft governors. All right, engine honey. And this could be caused with 3 systems. Of these are 1 governor, 2 pilot valve, 3 pilot valve and injector linkage, 3 road regulation. Check oil level. The governor must be between 2 lines with the sight glass for the running and the normal running temperature. Check the injector linkage for binding. Check load regulator vane motor timing. If hunting under load with the remove load with the check at the same speed with the regulator timing is off and causing hunting on the load engine with it should stop. The hunting is greatly helped by steady the engine speed with the lay shaft lever. If all others check with okay, the reset of the compensator with the need with the speed governor as necessary. Flush the governor, remove the dirt in the system. 7 governors overfills the oil to deflects the pilot valve oil. See, not confused with the foaming down, overfilling, broken loop oil pressure diaphragm, and then it goes over the specifications and equipment listing. In section 12 is pilot valve linkage setting, injector rack linkage. Testing.